Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the National Guard products. This is their part number 9800-9800B. This is a roll of intumescent fire seal is what it is. This is available in 17, 21, and 150-foot rolls. This happens to be a 21-foot roll, which would be appropriate for like a 6070 door. 6 foot wide, 7 foot tall, 21 would be great. 17 foot, that's going to be for a 3070 size door. 7 plus 7 plus 3 is your 17. That's the logic. 150 foot roll, obviously, if you have multiple doors to do. So, got a bit of it turned out here. Fire seal material. I'm going to give you the dimensional properties of it. And the B stands for the finish, which is brown, and you can detect its color. You see that brown on the back? You can tell that peel away protective coat paper that's on the back that will reveal the adhesive. We'll make it look, that's more a brown color than the camera actually allows it to look like. It's when you hold it up to something that's black. My desktop happens to be black. It is indeed a bit brown. There's no doubt about it. I don't know that I would actually have called this brown, but it's maybe a charcoal. But it's okay anyway. You're never going to see it when the door's closed anyway. So this is 1/2 inch material. Putting the caliper on it to get real technical about it. 0.505. Okay. Now the thickness of the material, including the paper backer, which you would remove, 0.088, 0.088, and they have it as a 1/16 of an inch. I'm sure that paper backer, well, let's just tell you what it is. Yeah, it's going to be slightly thicker than a 1/16, what they list in terms of its thickness, but only ever so marginally slightly. But you do need to know that there's a thickness so that it doesn't obviously interrupt with the proper operation of the door. Okay, this is an intumescent material, which is, simply put, when the door is exposed to fire conditions, this material, when it hits a certain temperature, is going to expand, as a matter of fact, 8 to 10 times its original thickness, which that temperature is 375 degrees to 400 degrees. In that range, it will expand. It'll go from, really a 1/16 of an inch thick all the way to, 1 inch thick, realistically, is what the thickness will become. The point of that, of course, is to completely seal the gap around a door and a frame, which is required in category G, 45, 60, 90-minute rated openings, and up to 4090 for single doors, and then 8090 for pairs of doors. Also, draft and smoke control category H compliant, UL10B, UL10C rated as well, and that's all listed down below. The bottom line is you're going to use this because code requires it. Fire safety code requires it. There is, in addition to brown, charcoal, probably more common, and then white available as well. The lengths as previously listed. The adhesive specifications, and I'm going to read this from the manufacturer's published data, is modified acrylic pressure-sensitive adhesive protected by release liner. It's not a paper back, but it's like a vinyl back. Provides high initial adhesion and long-term holding power for permanent mounting on exterior or interior locations, resistant to aging, weathering, UV radiation, water, detergent, alcohol, and the influence of chemicals. End use temperature range, long-term exposure, 30 below all the way to 250 degree above. Shelf life of adhesive prior to installation is 1 year when it's stored at room temperature controlled conditions. In short, don't buy this material if you don't intend to install it anytime in the near future. Just don't. The adhesive is not does not have that sort of shelf life, but it does have a 1-year shelf life, so keep that in mind. Now, there is a link below this video to a document called Tech Sheet, which is going to give you the some additional information to it that we have not yet covered, but let's begin to cover it now. On the right-hand side, you'll see a cross-section of the door and frame, and that's where you're going to strategically locate the material as well. So you'll notice that it's going to mount on the rabbet of the frame, on the head and latch side, and the hinge side as well. And they list the drawing that way only because it doesn't always, depending on the type of material, the head and latch can very often be different than the hinge side. But in this case, it's going to go on the rabbet on the entire vertical and head horizontal side for installation. And in a pair of doors, you can see that it would go right in the center of that material. Very self-explanatory to install. It's self-adhesive. Peel the material back and put it on. Well, not exactly that simple. There is a link also. It is simple, but not just those few steps. There's also a link below this video to the installation instructions, which is literally the packaging that you get. But also what you get is an alcohol pad. Now, I have installed this material. I've installed lots of it, self-adhesive weather stripping in the past. And the point is, learning the hard way the first time, the frame, if it's steel, needs to be utterly clean. If it's been painted, the paint needs to be utterly cured, a week for sure. Free of dust, debris, oil, anything that will impede the adhesive's ability of doing its job. If it's not done exactly properly, you will come to the job site the next day to find that you've got partial failure, and then at that point there's nothing that can really be done. You have to start over. So importantly that even when you think that it's clean, go over it one more time, that sort of situation. When you are sure that you've got the frame utterly clean, and if it's a wood frame and you've got it stained and sealed, which you probably won't ever, well, you could have a wood fire rated frame. You're going to want to scuff that up, and you're going to want to make sure there's no dust, debris that's in that scuffed up area, giving you additional surface area for the adhesive. Make sure it's clean, utterly clean. When you're applying the material, you're going to want to measure and pre-cut the pieces. Now, not so crucial on material like this because it doesn't seem elastic at all. But if you can think about a silicone type smoke and draft seal material, you could inadvertently stretch that ever so slightly, and the material is going to want to seek back its natural elasticity that will work against the adhesive as well. The point is, measure and pre-cut the pieces and put them on in those lengths. The point being, if you are too short or too long on the bottom, you either measured and cut wrong or you've stretched it a little bit, okay? So that will be a way of knowing ahead of time that there's the potential for a failure when you walk away after thinking that the job is done. So let's just look at the installation instructions. Surface temperature of the frame must be at least 50 degrees. Clean the frame with the wipe. And it goes on to talk about what I've already discussed. Measure and pre-cut the pieces. Remove the protective backing 1 to 2 feet at a time. I like to work in smaller lengths only because I have less tendency to stretch if it's something that is a bit elastic, and there's less of a tendency for, when I've got the adhesive open to the atmosphere, less time in a dusty environment for there to collect on the adhesive, but also for me to unintentionally bump it onto something and then have to pull it off. I like to work with shorter lengths, like 1 foot at a time. And again, with something like this that's actually fairly rigid, you don't really have to worry about stretching it like this too much, or twisting it or pulling it. So there's not too much of a concern with this material. Obviously, if you're holding it like this, you can get a better line on it being straight, but because it's so linear and you're attaching it to something that is very linear in shape itself, you can use the frame as a guide to know that you're applying it down straight and nice in a neat workmanship type fashion. Position where is illustrated, we pointed that out in the rabbets. Pressing firmly, 15 pounds of pressure required, straight down along the entire length of the gasketing. Do not remove and relocate. Don't put it on like a rolling pin. Push, push. 15 pounds of pressure is actually a lot of pressure. So keep that in mind and apply heavy pressure realistically for as long as you can. Have someone doing it with you so you can quickly go through it. And if you've got 20 doors to do, or 100 doors to do, or just 5, you can make a quicker work of it. The more pressure you put on for longer is going to give the adhesive a greater ability to stay intact when you come back the next day. Make sure that the door seal does not impede proper door operation. That, of course, would violate the entire integrity of the opening if the door no longer latched. There's also, moving on, a link below this video to the product brochure that will list the 9800 in its in a summary view of that material. And then there's also a sister product that can be used, which is their 9500, a intumescent edge fire seal that can be used as well if you are looking for something that has maybe a different type of look to it, or something that's going to give you the ability to have a piece of hardware blend into the frame overall a bit better. It's the same intumescent but has a PVC cover on it with 2 layers of adhesive. That might work out very well, and again, it can also be used in a pair of doors. Now finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the National Guard products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. If you have any questions on the National Guard products, 9500 B for brown, intumescent fire seal, or any other National Guard product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.